Make way. We're coming through here on the All Access Football Show. Welcome to October 1st, that is 2025. It's the All Access Football Daily Show. We're steamrolling ahead in our second month of the Daily Show live, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 days a week, no days off. It's actually our 31st episode, so we appreciate everyone who's been buckled up and hunkered down along for the ride. We got a great show for you today. And it's a Wednesday, hump day. Happy hump day, everybody. And each and every Wednesday, we have the legendary Howard Balzer celebrating 50 years of covering the NFL and the NFL draft. He joins us here at 10:40 a.m. Eastern, okay? We'll also get into our power rankings in the second segment. I just posted the world-famous All Access Football Report read by 50,000 subscribers from 70 countries around the world and all 32 NFL team. So if you're not subscribed, get down on it. That's published each and every Wednesday, courtesy of the Sports Management Worldwide folks. Check out smww.com for that. And we also got into the top of the draft. You know, we're 5 weeks through the college football season, and really there's no clear-cut consensus in terms of who will be the number one overall pick. Of course, 3 teams still remain winless. Your Tennessee Titans, New Orleans Saints, and the woeful New York Jets. We'll talk about what the top of the draft can look like, along with those power rankings over in the second segment. And we got a jam-packed guest lineup for you this week. In fact, Thursday, Ben Devine, Chicago Bear insider, NFL Draftnik, will be joining us tomorrow. The Bears on a bye week. We'll talk about the boisterous personality of head coach Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams trying to get their act together up in Chi-Town. And then Friday, making his All Access Football debut, will be Jason B. Hirschborn from the Leap of Lambeau, checking in with the Green Bay Packers report. The Bears and Packers on a bye this week, so we'll get a check-in with the NFC North division. Of course, don't forget about our Saturday pregame show with our residential scout, Russell Landy, and the NFL Pick'em around the league. We pick every single game against the spread. We're 12 games above 500 on the year. I'll get you the official record to date, but we start off with the NFL, and another week, another QB change. We head up to the Mistake by the Lake, also known as the Cleveland Brown Bags. And, you know, listen, I felt like this was inevitable. When you sign Joe Flacco, you better have a contingency plan. And so you saw the Browns double down with rookie signal callers in the 2025 NFL draft. Of course, Dylan Gabriel out of Oregon, who went in the 3rd round. Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado, chosen in the 5th round. And Flacco just not getting it done, completing 58% of his passes, 2 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. And that's how you go 0-4, ladies and gentlemen. Turnovers, sacks, incompletions. The Browns offense just not really clicking right now. And they have received a jolt from Quinshon Judkins, the last rookie to sign, and he's got 237 rushing yards in 3 games, including a pair of touchdowns. So they'll probably lean on the rookie more with the rookie quarterback in the saddle. And of course, Cleveland, who do they have on deck this week? The Browns are going to go and play the Minnesota Vikings. Okay, so another one of these classic QB duels between Dylan Gabriel and Carson Wentz. And give Kevin O'Connell some credit over there for maximizing Carson Wentz, doing a lot of RPO and squeezing the most out of that Carson Wentz. So Cleveland looking for a little bit of a jolt. And, you know, the next question that we ponder is just, if Dylan Gabriel does not succeed, how long is it until Shedeur? I'm better than a lot of the starting quarterbacks around the league, Sanders, and that was his statement last week when asked about his preparation, and said, looking around the league, I know I can start, and maybe he can. I'm still a believer in Shedeur Sanders, and there was a very serious conversation with the New York Giants front office in terms of would they go Shedeur Sanders, would they go Jackson Dart. So that was a very realistic conversation the Giants had, but obviously Shedeur fell to the 5th round, and now he's not quite the next man up yet, because Flacco will be the backup for this week and Gabriel will start. Shador stuck on the scout team, but I would think with the Browns going nowhere fast, at some point, Shador is going to get a good look-see there and see what he can do. And the countdown is on, right? Something to be excited about, I guess. If you're a Cleveland Browns fan, there's a lot of suffering over the years, and maybe this is something to look forward to. Maybe we can have a Browns fan chime in the chat room. But that is your update for the mistake by the lake. Update on Tyreek Hill. You know, I was thinking that this could be the end of his career. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But if you heard his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, yesterday, maybe the cheetah avoided catastrophe because now, this is agent speak, so you can take it with the grain of salt or however you want it. But Rosenhaus saying the surgery went very well, according to doctors. The realistic goal is to start next season, and he will play, says Drew Rosenhaus. And the good news, if there is any good news to look at in terms of a career-threatening injury, is there was no nerve damage, remarkably, no blood flow issues, no broken bones, incredible, and the knee cartilage is fine, according to agent Drew Rosenhaus. So, again, it's going to be a long road back for Tyreek Hill, who's going to turn 31 years old. And the second part of that equation is, if he does return, will it be with the Miami Dolphins? We already heard some trade rumors prior to the injury. And of course, he skipped out on last Friday's practice to go take pictures at his father's wedding. Didn't sit with people very well. And you saw Hill all amped up. Like, he was not voted a team captain this year for the first time since arriving in Miami. But he was the guy, like, if you look at the pregame speech, the huddle, rallying the troops, it was Tyreek Hill. And, it was funny. Like, some of the guys embraced it. Some of the guys didn't want any part of it. Brad Cecler, most notably, could really care less about Tyreek Hill dancing and prancing around in the pregame. But there you are with the Miami Dolphins, who also were in the news yesterday. Well, before I get to that, they did sign Cedric Wilson off of the New Orleans Saints practice squad to add some depth to the wide receiver room there. Now, Wilson was hanging out on the Saints practice squad, but he did spend 2 years with the Dolphins previously in 2022, 2023 seasons, had 34 catches for 432 yards and 3 touchdowns. So Mike McDaniel, obviously comfortable. He knows the offense. And so Cedric Wilson added to just provide some depth there for the Dolphins wide receiver room. And then, another move that Miami made, maybe raising some eyebrows, cornerback Cam Smith. I mean, he was just a second-round pick 2 years ago in the 2023 NFL draft, number 51 overall. And he's been unable to stay healthy. He's been inconsistent. He's been relegated primarily just to special teams duties during his time in Miami. But he was on the non-football illness list, whatever that means. And general manager Chris Greer deciding to part ways. Now, the interesting backstory on Cam Smith is he was teammates with Chris Greer's son down there in the Gamecocks. Whether or not that had any sway or influence in terms of Miami overdrafting him, maybe. But, man, that's definitely a swing and a miss anytime you have to cut a second-round draft pick and not even 2 years later. So Dolphins making some moves. Little update there on Tyreek Hill. Over in the NFC, the Tampa Bay Bucks, man, they've had a brutal year of injuries, and we've talked about it here on the show. And now you got Bucky Irving, who I felt like is one of the most underrated players in the National Football League. Him and Rachaad White forming a really potent 1-2 punch there for the Tampa Bay running back committee. Well, they might be down a back from that committee, and lower leg for Bucky Irving. He's now going to seek multiple opinions. His status for the game at Seattle this week is considered to be questionable. And, the Bucks are getting back some firepower. Tristan Wirfs returned last week. Chris Godwin now is back practicing. Todd Bowles saying he's going to be a factor once he knocks the rust off. And, of course, now Mike Evans out for several weeks. So Evans goes down. Godwin comes back. Of course, Emeka Egbuka with a touchdown in his first 4 games, playing unbelievable there for the Tampa Bay Bucks. And, going into Seattle is no easy task. The 12th man is real, and Seattle's been playing very well. So Tampa Bay may be down a running back there against Seattle this week. All right, other injury news that emerged yesterday. The Las Vegas Raiders, who will be traveling to Indianapolis, they are going to be without Colton Miller, their starting left tackle. And this is a significant blow. Geno Smith not playing exactly very well. Well, expect him to be under duress and more pressure now with Colton Miller, a high ankle sprain and hairline fracture, which he suffered during the loss to the Bears. He's expected to go on the IR, so he's going to miss at least 4 games, maybe longer. And Miller is the longest tenured player on that Las Vegas roster. He started 111 of his 113 games played and just signed a contract extension back in training camp for 3 years, $66 million. So you never like to see a cornerstone player go down, and we'll see if Colton Miller can return to action this season. In the interim, Stone Forsythe, that of 57 career games, including 14 career starts, expected to slide into that left tackle position. I think he spent the past 2 years with the Seahawks. And rookie Charles Grant also mentioned as somebody who can compete for playing time, according to head coach Pete Carroll. So the Raiders will be mixing and matching along their offensive line here as they get set to travel to Indianapolis in NFL Week 5. And, some very good matchups once again this week. And Denver Broncos traveling to the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles have had a tough schedule, haven't they? But they just find a way to pull it out each and every week. And, Sean Payton was asked about the tush push yesterday at his press conference. And, he said a few things that probably aren't going to make the suits happy over there on Park Avenue. But Sean Payton said, the tush push might just be the safest play in the National Football League. And, he is a member of the competition committee, that is Sean Payton. And he said, this was his quote, when he said the NFL start signaling the alarms around health and safety, Sean Payton said, my bullshit nose kind of went up. So Sean Payton calling the NFL out for their BS in regards to the tush push. I can't recall an injury ever occurring on this play. So how is it a health risk? And that's a very good point that Sean Payton makes. So, the vote was close. They almost got the vote to ban it, but why are we banning it? Is it a health and safety thing, or is it a competition thing? You can't stop it. The Kareem Abdul-Jabbar skyhook is coming back from the Eagles. But remember now, once upon a time, there was a scandal called Bountygate that Sean Payton was in the heat of, right? And didn't he have to serve, I think, a whole 1-year suspension, wasn't it? So you think maybe there's a little bit of bad blood that still lingers? You think Sean Payton forgot about that? So he's calling the NFL out on their BS when it comes to the tush push. I thought that was interesting. And then also, I told you we'll be keeping tabs on this now, the Robert Saleh, Liam Cohen rivalry, the cross-coast rivalry that suddenly emerged. And you saw, Cohen blowing off the handshake and then yelling back, hey, keep your name out of my mouth. Robert Saleh telling Cohen on the field, like, I'll end your life, bro. You don't want this smoke. And so they exchanged words. Cohen said, hey, I'm going to let our exchange stay between us, taking the high road, I guess. And Robert Saleh kind of backtracking on his initial comments from last week, saying that about the hand signal sign stealing. And, he walked it back a little bit, saying he probably used the wrong choice of words. You're a grown-ass man, Robert Saleh. Own your comments. You know what you said. You knew what you were saying when the words came out of your mouth, and now you're trying to backtrack and cover it up. We know what you were insinuating. Just be a man about it. Own it. No need to appease the peanut gallery, all right? People will respect you more if you just stick to your guns and be who you are. That's who you are. Stick to it. Maybe that's why it didn't work out for you in New York. You're always trying to appease everybody and appeal to keep everybody happy all the time. You know, Sailor was a player's coach. The players took full advantage of it. And I don't think they really truly respected him there in New York. Hey, it's the All Access Football Show. Your home for real football talk. I'm keeping it real. Ric Serritella here on this October 1st, 2025. It's our 31st episode here on the All Access Football Daily Show as we begin our second month of programming. And coming up in about 20 minutes, we're going to have the legendary Howard Balzer celebrating 50 years of covering the NFL. And when we come back from the commercial break, we're going to get into, oh, by the way, we're going to have a great Hall of Fame debate with Howard because he was on the air 2 weeks ago breaking the news when the Hall of Fame announced the 128 modern day nominees for the class of 2026 NFL draft. And you guys seem to have enjoyed that. And I enjoyed partaking in that conversation. Of course, Howard Balzer, a Pro Football Hall of Fame voter. So we'll get an update with the Cardinals. They've got some running back issues. We'll talk about the NFL news and notes the week that was. We'll take a look ahead at the week that will be. But we'll also try to lend some clarity to the logjam at the wide receiver position. Of course, Howard delivered the news. Larry Fitzgerald will be a first-time nominee. What does that mean for Reggie Wayne, Steve Smith, Torrey Holt? You got 4 candidates all worthy of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but we'll talk more about the process and why it might be difficult to get those guys in. So looking forward to that. And when we come back, we did a giveaway yesterday, gave away some books, gave away some candidates. We'll have another giveaway here in the second segment before we pop Howard on. So stay tuned, play games, win prizes. Ric Serritella for the All Access Football Daily Show. We'll be back right after this. Hey, RIC and a place to be. Ric Serritella checking in from the legendary Jersey Shore for the All Access Football, and you're tuned in to the All Access Football Daily Show, our newest venture here at the world famous All Access Football, read by all 32 NFL teams and 50,000 subscribers from around the world. And I've been blessed and fortunate enough to work in this great game of football for the past 2 decades. It's our 24th season of providing you independent analysis when it comes to the NFL draft and everything pigskin, whether it's the NFL, college football, NFL draft, CFL, UFL. We'll be with you each step of the way, especially for draft season when we really get into high mode. Of course, it's all brought to you by the 2026 NFL Draft Bible, published in April, featuring over 500 in-depth scouting reports with our boots-on-the-ground analysis. We'll be on location at the All-Star Games, the NFL Scouting Combine, the Pro Day Circuit, counting you down to that 2026 NFL Draft in Pittsburgh. And be sure you check us out over at allaccessfootball.com. We've got a great promo discount for you listeners at home. If you enter our promo code RICVIP, you'll get a 30% discount off of all of our premium content. You'll unlock the magic. Get our NFL Draft Insider Reports, Scouting Notebook, of course, the World Football All Access Football Report published on Wednesday. It's your new home for real football talk. So follow along, give us a shout. We hope you're enjoying the show. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or X, please give it a like, a share, a subscribe, and we'll be with you each and every day here, 7 days a week, live, 10 a.m. Eastern, no days off, rain, sleet, hail, snow. The show must go on. For Ric Serritella and the All Access Football Daily Show, keep it locked, everybody.
football.
All right, we're back at it again. Watch out for the steam train. We're rolling right along here on the All Access Football Daily Show. It's our first day of October 1st, 2025. It's Happy Hump Day. We got special guest Howard Balzer joining us in about 20 minutes or so. And Thursday, we've got Thursday and Friday, a couple of guests making their All Access Football Show debut. And Ben Devine will be here on Thursday, Chicago Bears insider NFL Draft Nick. Looking forward to that one. And of course, Football Friday Affair with our friend Jason B. Hirschborn, publishes The Leap over at Substack. Make sure you check him out, formerly of NFL.com. And we got some Thursday night football coming up tomorrow that we'll get to. And then Friday Night Lights, the list is long, and we'll have a lot of prospects to keep an eye on. And we're going to turn our attention to the NFL draft here next on the All Access Football Daily Show. But I do want to alert the listening audience of an internet rumor. I mentioned the Raiders last segment. We went around the NFL landscape with the latest news and notes. There is an internet rumor floating around out there, and take it for what you want, that the Dallas Cowboys could be exploring a trade for Max Crosby. Interesting. So we'll see if that materializes, and if the Raiders season goes off the tracks, then maybe they think about having a fire sale. And wouldn't that be a coup for the Dallas Cowboys? So something we'll keep an eye on here. Okay. Speaking of Substack, I told you we published the world famous All Access Football Report just this morning over on the website. It's read by 50,000 subscribers from 70 countries around the world and all 32 NFL teams. And, I discussed a look at the top of the draft. And, right now, the Saints, the Jets, and the Titans are all winless. So they are, vying, I guess, for that number one overall draft pick spot. And, I was on my good friend Gabriel Morency's podcast that I've been doing for the last 5 years every Tuesday. Make sure you check out Sports Rage over on Twitter for that show. It's available on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you can find podcasts. We do it each and every Tuesday. But we did a deep dive into the top of the NFL draft. We took a look at the draft odds. And according to Vegas right now, Fernando Mendoza is the odds-on favorite to be the number one overall pick come April 23rd, which is now 203 days away, I believe, as we count you down to the 2026 NFL draft destination, Pittsburgh. But Mendoza here, according to the odds, is the favorite. However, if I was starting a team today, and a lot can change between now and the next 204 days, right? But if I were to start a team today and I had that number one pick, in terms of the most pro-ready signal caller, ready to step in immediately, I'm staring at Carson Beck there in Miami. And we've never wavered from him being a first-round pick. I know Georgia led the nation with 36 dropped passes amongst wide receivers a year ago. So the stats didn't really look like they should have for Carson Beck there in his final year of Georgia. But, man, he is playing mistake-free football. So smart with the football. Doesn't make bad decisions. Can make all the throws. More of a traditional pocket passer, which still succeeds in the NFL. And you talk about big game pedigree. Like Mendoza, he did play 11 games at Cal last year. And he's already tied his touchdown total from a year ago through 5 games. He's got 16 touchdowns and 1 interception. So, I mean, the kid is playing lights out. But when you talk about big game pedigree, experience, Carson Beck, I mean, he's been battle tested. He made 27 starts at Georgia. He's got the Hurricanes off to a 4-0 start. And I believe Miami is a legitimate national championship contender. And they're playing Florida State this weekend. We're going to have that on the Draft Insider on Friday. We're going to preview that game and take a look at the top prospects participating in that game. And maybe we'll get to that on Saturday's show with Russ Landy a little bit more. But to me, Beck is probably the most ready. Mendoza, probably a higher ceiling. Okay. Now, we've spoken about Garrett Nussmeier, and Brian Kelly, man, he's a bit testy, isn't he, in these press conferences? 2 weeks ago, he said Garrett Nussmeier was going to shut it down this week during the bye. Now he refuses to speak on it. Garrett Nussmeier also taking the high road, saying he's not going to talk about his injuries. But it's clear when you watch him, he's struggling mightily. And the ball velocity is down. The deep ball passing attack is virtually non-existent there for the Tigers offense. And I think the durability is a real concern now here at the next level. If you're an NFL evaluator and you're looking to build a franchise around Garrett Nussmeier, and remember Doug Nussmeier, his dad is the OC there in New Orleans, this could be an interesting decision because based on the first month of the season, he sure doesn't look like a franchise quarterback. And he got off to that big start there in week 1 with the win over Clemson, and everybody was ready to anoint him. But he has backtracked since then. And then, you've got the ultimate wild card in this year's draft. That is Lenore Sellers. And I get it, right? He's got all the tools, big physical runner, powerful arm. But to me, you run the risk reward proposition here, much like Anthony Richardson of a couple years ago, who went number 4 overall to the Colts. Sellers is really just a one-read quarterback at this stage of his development. And so, again, you're betting on the dangerous P word, which is potential. And I get it. He might have more upside than all these quarterbacks, but has he really done it? I haven't seen it there at South Carolina. There's been flashes. There's been glimpses. It makes you say, oh, wow. But, in terms of being the number 1 overall pick in the upcoming draft, I think that's a little bit far stretched. And I know he still remains atop the big board around, respected media analysts. But I don't know. I'm going to take a wait and see approach for Lenore Sellers. Obviously, he's got 2 years of eligibility left, as does Dante Moore. And we talked about it in Monday's article with the Scout Notebook. I think Dante Moore now is a legitimate candidate to be not only a first-round pick, but why can't he catapult himself up to being the premier signal caller in this year's draft? I think it's definitely attainable. And you saw how he played against Penn State. It was Moore, not Drew Allar, who I think caught and captivated the NFL scouts' attention with his performance there. And you know what? One last guy I want to talk about is Arch Manning. I know people have been quick to throw dirt on his grave. He did have a get-right game 2 weeks ago against Sam Houston State. He's coming off a bye week. Texas, I believe, has Florida this week. And so Arch Manning now, see if he can get back on track. He's going to go against Florida this week and Oklahoma next week. And I think we'll have a better gauge of the temperature, a better feel for Arch Manning as a prospect. But, I mean, when it's all said and done, considering I don't want to say how bad the quarterback class is going to be because there's still a lot to be determined, but it's not shaping up to be a star-studded QB class in terms of excitement and guys that you really want to build an organization around. I don't know. You guys tell me, like, who are you excited about? I could state a case for, each one of those quarterbacks, however many we just rattled off, 5 or 6. You could state a strong argument for all of them, right? So something to keep an eye on. Now, if the Tennessee Titans land that first-round pick, then it's not going to be a quarterback. Maybe they trade out of that spot. But again, I spoke about this on the Sports Rage show yesterday. This is not a draft that's going to be littered with blue chip type prospects. And, last year you had Abdul Carter, or this year you had Abdul Carter, you had Travis Hunter. How about Armand Membo of the New York Jets? He, is getting a lot of praise around the league for potentially being the most impressive looking rookie so far this season. And that's a building block now for the Jets to build around that they have many there. But, Reuben Bain Jr. has emerged from Miami. He's got 44 tackles through his first 4 games, a pair of sacks, 3 forced fumbles, an interception. I mean, he's getting his hands on the ball, batting down passes. Like Reuben Bain Jr. has clearly created some distance, I think, in terms of non-quarterback prospects. And, of course, Caleb Downs from Ohio State via Alabama. He could make history now, right? If he is chosen number 1 overall, he would be the first safety in the history of the NFL draft to be taken number 1 overall. Sean Taylor was number 5 overall for the Washington football team. I think there was another safety who once went number 5 overall, but Caleb Downs has a chance to go higher than any safety ever. So you can read more about that over on the website, over at allaccessfootball.com. I published that in the All Access Football Report just this morning. Of course, more on Dante Moore from Monday's article. We've also posted this week the California Golden Bears draft watch if you want to take a look at Fernando Mendoza's former team and who the top prospects are there. And then Georgia Tech draft watch we also posted with Haynes King, a potential day 3 quarterback for the next level. And we've also updated Alabama, Florida State, Georgia, Illinois, Oregon in terms of NFL draft watch. So it's draft season all year round over at the All Access Football Show. We got about 10 minutes or so until Howard Balzer joins us. Just a quick look at the weekly power rankings. Philadelphia Eagles coming in at number 1, 4-0. Buffalo Bills, 4-0. And then I got the Rams, Lions, Chiefs at number 5, Buccaneers at 6. And let's just pause right there because the NFC, look at this, 4 of the 6 teams, Eagles, Rams, Lions, Bucks, those are all legitimate Super Bowl contenders, right? And the AFC, you got Buffalo, you got Kansas City, and then coming in at number 7, I've got the Colts. I got the Colts at 7. I got the Chargers dipping down a little bit, down 2 offensive tackles, down Khalil Mack. But holding strong atop the AFC West are the LA Chargers, and Jacksonville Jaguars making a debut in our top 10. I just really like what they're building there. They're finding ways to win games. Travis Hunter has really yet to heat up. And I think Jacksonville is just going to get stronger as the season wears on. They're 3-1. They're riding high. And rounding out my top 10, I still have the Baltimore Ravens hanging in there by a thread at 1-3. We're going to see if they can get it turned around, but it doesn't look promising now. Lamar Jackson, and we haven't talked about that. His hamstring could keep him out 2 to 4 weeks. So Cooper Rush time. All right, we'll see. Cooper Rush did do well filling in for Dak Prescott, one of the more competent backup quarterbacks, but we got the Ravens hanging on by a thread there in our NFL power rankings. Okay. We've also got the QB rankings, NFL GM rankings, NFL head coach rankings, CFL power rankings. Montreal Alouettes sitting atop our power rankings, followed by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Saskatchewan Roughriders, Hamilton Tiger Cats, BC Lions, and then the Calgary Stampeders. What's funny about it is they all have similar records. They're all about 8-6, 8-7, 9-6. Saskatchewan 10-4, but they just got beat down last week. So we spent some time yesterday on the CFL landscape, and then college football. My rankings look like this: Ohio State 1, Oregon 2, Miami 3, Oklahoma 4. Of course, they're still awaiting John Mateer to return from his hand surgery. He's going to probably miss a couple more weeks. Be nice if he can get back in the saddle there for that Arch Manning showdown in 2 weeks. Ole Miss Rebels creeping up to number 5 on my top 10. Alabama at 6, Georgia at 7, Texas A&M, who's got the strongest strength of schedule, I believe, amongst Power 4 conference teams. I got them at number 8. Penn State falls to 9, and the Texas Longhorns rounding out my top 10. And I got to criticize myself because I've been pumping up Indiana as a top 10 team. I just couldn't find a home for them this week. The first time they're on the outside of my top 10, which probably isn't fair because they did beat Iowa after destroying Illinois. But I don't know. When I look at Indiana and I look at my top 10 teams, if they were to play each other, I don't think Indiana is capable of beating any of those teams I just mentioned. So that's my logic for that one. All right, Ric Serritella here on the All Access Football Show. We got Howard Balzer coming up in just about 5 minutes. Now, we did a giveaway yesterday, and you see the Value Picks book in the background there. We got a whole shipment in, courtesy of our good friend Neil Stratton. And we also have some Canadips, courtesy of the good folks over at Canadips. We've got a couple piles here, and this is what we're going to do. And we gave away a couple yesterday, and we're going to give them away until they last, until we run out here. So we got quite a few to give away. And here's how it's going to go down. Okay, there are rules to this contest. So One, you got to like, share, and subscribe to the show. Very easy. Like, share, subscribe to the show wherever you're watching, on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Like, share, subscribe. Then go over to the allaccessfootball.com website. Use our promo code RICVIP. That's going to get you a 30% discount off of the All Access Football annual membership. It's going to take you from $30 down to $20. Okay, now that's going to include the 2026 NFL Draft Bible. We published that in April, so you make sure you reserve your copy there. Over 500 in-depth scouting reports for the 2026 NFL Draft. Okay, and if you do all that, we're going to throw in a free copy of Value Picks by Neil Stratton. Okay, the drama, decisions, and details behind the 8 selections of the 2016 NFL Draft. And Neil did over 100 interviews with scouts, personnel, front office executives for this book. You've got testimonials from George Patton, John Spytek, Les Snead, Mike Martin. Okay, so if you're into the NFL Draft, you want to know how the sausage is made, Neil does a great job of peeling back the layers of the onion. Okay, that goes for about $15 on Amazon. And then we have these candidates that we're going to throw in as well. So when you sign up on the website, there's a field there. It's optional to put your address. Make sure you include your address so I can ship these out to you, because it's really a $75 value for $20. You get the All Access Football annual membership. You get the NFL Draft Bible. You get the Value Picks book. And you get a free pack of candidates, which go for about $35 there on the website. So $75 value for $20. It'll be the best $20 you spend all year if you love the NFL Draft. And I did the math for you. It comes out to 54 cents a day. So if you can spare 2 quarters a day, you'll get more value than a cup of coffee. All right. Ric Serritella here on October 1st, 2025, our first show of our second month of programming. It's our 31st edition of the All Access Football Daily Show. It's your home for real football talk. And our next guest always delivers on value. He's going to be joining us right after the commercial break. Howard Balzer, who joins us each and every Wednesday, celebrating 50 years of covering the NFL, will join us next. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after this. Hey, RIC in a place to be. Ric Serritella checking in from the legendary Jersey Shore for the world-famous All Access Football, and you're tuned in to the All Access Football Daily Show, our newest venture here at the world-famous All Access Football, read by all 32 NFL teams and 50,000 subscribers from around the world. And I've been blessed and fortunate enough to work in this great game of football for the past 2 decades. It's our 24th season of providing you independent analysis when it comes to the NFL Draft and everything pigskin, whether it's the NFL, college football, NFL Draft, CFL, UFL. We'll be with you each step of the way, especially for draft season when we really get into high mode. Of course, it's all brought to you by the 2026 NFL Draft Bible, published in April, featuring over 500 in-depth scouting reports with our boots-on-the-ground analysis. We'll be on location at the All-Star Games, the NFL Scouting Combine, the Pro Day circuit, counting you down to that 2026 NFL Draft in Pittsburgh. And be sure you check us out over at allaccessfootball.com. We've got a great promo discount for you listeners at home. If you enter our promo code RICVIP, you'll get a 30% discount off of all of our premium content. You'll unlock the magic. Get our NFL Draft Insider Reports, Scouting Notebook, of course, the World Football All Access Football Report, published on Wednesday. It's your new home for real football talk. So follow along, give us a shout. We hope you're enjoying the show. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or X, please give it a like, a share, a subscribe, and we'll be with you each and every day here, 7 days a week, live, 10 a.m. Eastern, no days off, rain, sleet, hail, snow. The show must go on. For Ric Serritella and the All Access Football Daily Show, keep it locked, everybody. All right, we're back at it again, steamrolling along on the All Access Football Daily Show here on this October 1st, 2025. We're all the way live from the confines of the Jersey Shore, broadcasting into your viewing monitor, wherever that may be, on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter X. So please smash that like button, share it, subscribe it. And, we've got a lot still to get to in this power of hour. We talked about NFL news and notes in the first segment. We just got some NFL draft talk along with our power rankings at the NFL, CFL, and college football levels in the B block. And then the C block is my favorite segment of the week, because each and every Wednesday, our next guest delivers the goods. He has been a contributor over at the Sporting News, Pro Football Weekly, the Sports Exchange. Of course, he's a Pro Football Hall of Fame voter, and we'll get into some of that today as well. A host over at Sirius XM Radio, of course, the Cards Wire, and celebrating 50 years of covering the NFL and the NFL draft, paving the way for guys like Mel Kiper Jr. and myself. He is Howard Balzer, and he joins us here on the All Access Football Daily Show from the desert. Good morning, Howard. How are we doing today?
Doing great. October 1st, like you said, and this just fulfills the prophecy that I have every year when we finally get to week 1 in the NFL after the long offseason, longest offseason in any professional sport that there is. And it gets everybody just panting and waiting and anticipating. And then I always say, though, that in about 8 weeks, we're going to be snapping our fingers and saying, oh, my goodness, how did half the season go by already? Now, of course, it's not 8 anymore, like more like 9 weeks is the official halfway point of the season. But here we are, basically, a little less than a quarter of the way through, and it seems like it just started yesterday. This season always flies by, and Here we are again, heading into October, heading into week 5. Our first teams will be on bye this week, and we'll be treated to that for a number of weeks with teams not playing. But that's the NFL. That's how it rolls every year, and it just flies by. The season goes very, very quickly. It's always interesting to me, Rick, when you'll hear coaches say when the season opens, they'll always talk about how you need 4 weeks or so at least to really get a feel of what teams are. Defenses are usually ahead of the offense. But then they always say, but we've got a long ways to go. Yeah. And I often think, well, no, it might feel like it, but then all of a sudden, like I said, you're there and you're going, oh my goodness, we're really moving fast here. So it goes a lot quicker, I think, than a lot of people realize.
No, it's so true. It flies by in the blink of an eye, and we're suddenly now just 204 days away from the 2026 NFL draft. But who's keeping track, right? You mentioned it every week, and last week was no different. 10 one-score games and a tie this past week in the NFL, and it really has become a battle of one-possession ball games, hasn't it?
Oh, it definitely has. And one of these days, each week I say, I got to go through all the schedule and see where all teams sit. You don't want to do that too early, because if you say a team's 1-0 and one-score games or two, whatever it might be, but it makes a huge difference. Obviously, the teams that are left standing at the end of the year, most of the time, are teams that are able to find ways to win those one-score games. And you make 10 in week 4. That gives us only in 4 weeks. There's been 64 games played, obviously, right? 38 have been one-score games.
Unbelievable.
38, and 18 have been decided by a field goal or less. And it's just, it's just crazy. Another number where 18 comes in, Rick, is that 18 game-winning scores this season have come in the final 3 minutes of the game. 18. That's a 64. I mean, that's a pretty high, percentage. Then you start looking at other things, like there's been 11 special teams touchdowns. To me, that's been one of the kind of talked about, but not that much stories of the beginning of this season, are the special teams, touchdowns, blocked field goals. And yet the flip side is, here's a number that's astounding. And I saw a story either yesterday or the day before with Vic Fangio talking about these long distance field goals, which now just seem to be no big deal in the NFL, with teams Hey, if you got a guy with a leg, hey, we'll try a 60-yard plus field goal. And certainly you pick your spots because you don't want to do that at the wrong time because of field position. But so far this season, there have been 77 field goal attempts of 50 yards or more, and kickers have made 56. I mean, that's just a crazy percentage. And there's been 7 60-plus yard field goals attempted, and 4 of them have been successful. So Fangio believes it's because of the K ball and how they gave the kickers
a
whole bunch of balls before the season that they could work to do whatever.
They doctor them. Yeah, they doctor them all season.
And then they pick the ones they want for a given week. In the past, the kickers would get the ball about an hour and a half before the game and quickly do some stuff. But now they've changed that. But here's the thing I always say, right? Okay, yes, that will affect distance. There's no doubt about that. It's in some weird ways, it's almost like the whole steroid debate in baseball. No question that the power and the distance was affected. But you still got to hit the ball at the right spot on the bat for it to matter. Same thing with these field goal kickers. Yeah, they got the long distance, but the accuracy is just incredible. I mean, I always have thought this when they set up the field goal and the camera's behind, obviously. And boy, even on 40-yard field goals, those uprights seem they're a long way away. But for these kickers, it doesn't seem to matter anymore. I don't even think they really look at it. They just look, okay, there's where it is. Boom, that's my target point. But the accuracy, the number of these field goals that go basically right down the middle, to me, is phenomenal. That has nothing to do with the K ball, I don't believe. I really don't.
Really? Yeah.
Well, the K ball, when you work it in and all that, maybe it affects it a little bit, but the accuracy is just like golf. No matter how much they've improved the ball in golf and it travels long ways, it's still a matter of hitting the fairway, right? And so that's the accuracy to me is just really the big story of what these kickers are able to accomplish right now on a consistent basis.
No, it's incredible. And I did see Fangio's statement there, and he said, Brandon Aubrey's going to kick a 70-yard field goal this year. You can book that. And if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you don't even need to get across the 50, right? If you're on your own 40, you can try out Aubrey for a field goal attempt. Now, I'm on the other side of the fence with these K balls. Is that what they're calling them? These doctored balls that the kickers just get to keep in their little cubby hole all season and work the molasses. And I don't know, it seems a little bit like an uneven playing field, especially when the NFL made such a big deal about Deflategate. Are the officials measuring the PSI on these field goal attempts when the ball is out there on every kick? I don't see them doing that. So how do we know the PSI, the air gauge? I mean, I do think there is some kind of benefit from having your own ball as opposed to a brand new shiny ball, which isn't going to get the same kind of traction. And you still got to be accurate, but I do think there is for guys who do know how to work those balls. I mean, there is a little bit of a competitive advantage, no?
Well, no, I mean, there's no question that that's a big part of it. And it used to be that you would just use the same ball that was in play. This goes back many, many years. Whatever ball is in play, that ends up being the ball that's used for the kicker. Then they changed that to make it different balls, and that's what the K ball was. What they've changed, obviously, they've gone back and forth on it in terms of when the players can get to them. There was one stretch of time where they weren't allowed to do anything to them. They were just in this little bag, and then they bring out that ball, for the kick. But in terms of an advantage, I mean, they all have the ability to do it. I can't believe there's any kickers that don't know how to do it and or what to do. And and the coaches, obviously, the special teams coaches certainly know. And so if anyone's not doing it, that's on them. Now, I'm not saying that, we can debate whether it's good for the game overall to do that with the kickers. And that's an interesting debate. But in terms of a competitive advantage, like I said, they all have the ability to do it. And so then it just comes down to actually doing it. And you mentioned that 70-yard field goal. I mean, what the heck? Cam Little of the Jaguars hit a 70-yarder in the preseason, right? But, but again, it still comes down to at what point are you going to try those kicks? Because, I mean, obviously, if you're trying a 70-yard kick at some point in the game, you miss, then the other team's getting the ball, at the plus 40-yard line, right? And is that, yes, 40, 60, and another 10. Yeah. So you don't want to give away that field position, but near the end of the half, near the end of the game, certainly there's no true downside to doing that in key situations. Now, if it's a tie game, then you got a tough decision, from these coaches, because if there's time on the clock and you don't make one of those, then all of a sudden like I said, you're giving the other team the ball. And a lot of it could depend on who the other team's kicker is. Hey, do we want to take that chance of a miss and then putting the other team almost immediately in field goal, not in field goal position, but not needing a whole lot, to get there. So it's definitely affecting the strategy of the game and a lot of different things. So just another thing to think about, during games on Sundays and Mondays and Thursdays.
I think it's something to think about too when it comes to the NFL draft, because the difference between having a good kicker and a bad kicker is night and day. And I think Brandon Aubrey, I think he's one of the most potent weapons in the National Football League. And we saw it like 2 weeks ago at the end of the first half. Here came Aubrey trying out to attempt a 67-yard field goal against the Giants before the end of the first half. Now, Dallas got called for a penalty and knocked them out of the field goal range, but they were going to do that. And, I'll tell you, special teams, the Eagles, they had to block the punt this week after 2 blocked field goals the week before. Special teams has become a greater emphasis here in the National Football League in the 2025 season. We got Howard Balzer, of course, contributor for Cards Wire over at USA Today. And let's talk a little bit about the Arizona Cardinals, who have been in one-score games each and every week. Of course, being on the wrong end this past week. Was it the Raiders 23-20 that they fell to, Howard?
No,
Seattle. Okay. And so they lose to Seattle 23-20. But good news is they have the Tennessee Titans this week. But let's talk about last week. Looks like they're going to have some backfield issues moving forward, in addition to James Conner.
Yeah, no, that's the big question. And there's a lot of, I don't know if concern is the right word, but it's unknown right now because, the Cardinals had an extra day of practice this week after the, quote, mini bye. And so they had an hour practice on Monday, which the media is allowed to be at. And all of a sudden, Trey Benson is not on the field. And so he also, didn't play in the team's final possession. Now, they were down by a touchdown. Emari DeMarcado is their third down back. He's a better, Benson does a nice job in passing situations as a pass catcher, but you also need that guy in there that you're comfortable is going to block if the ball's not going to that guy. And so DeMarcado is very good at that. And he ended up scoring a 7-yard touchdown on a quick pass to help tie the game there late. Well, Benson didn't play on that possession, so that raised some eyebrows. But then when he wasn't there at practice, and naturally you get no information because when the question's asked is, and Jonathan Gannon usually speaks before practice, and so you don't even know who might not be out there, especially on the first day of the week. You don't know who might be out there that you weren't even aware, perhaps got an injury in a game or something might have happened. And so when he was asked, he said, well, it's day to day, and you guys will get the information on Wednesday on the injury report. So today we'll find out later if he's on the injury report, if there is an injury, if there's some other reason he missed. But the other part of that is that on Monday, the Cardinals also signed Michael Carter to the active roster from the practice squad. And then they signed Dearness Johnson to the practice squad spot that Carter was vacating. But then they also yesterday reported tryouts with 4 other running backs. So it raises eyebrows and says, is there something going on with Trey Benson? And so we'll know if we'll find out later today if he's on the injury report. But yeah, after the loss of Connor, that was a tough one. And they became pretty much a passing team in that Thursday game against Seattle. Obviously, it was a short week anyway. You're not able to work on a lot of things. But they went into that game knowing that they were going to have a hard time running without Connor, going against an excellent run defense in the Seahawks. And so they were much more a passing offense in that game. And then it got even more so later when they were down by 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. And the passing game didn't work that well for the first 3 quarters. Fourth quarter, it did. So it's going to be very interesting to see what their approach is on Sunday against Tennessee. And, Marvin Harrison, who just had talk about a roller coaster in his first, 3, 12, 15 quarters. And then all of a sudden, in the first half of that game against the Seahawks, he just looked lost out there. It looked like his head wasn't in the game, with drops and miscommunications and different things like that. And 5 targets in the first half and only 1 catch for 8 yards. And that came on the first play of the game. Then all of a sudden he woke up in the fourth quarter and had some big catches and a tremendous catch in the end zone that he high pointed. And people saw it right afterwards. He went to his knees, and you could almost feel the sigh of relief that he was breathing in that after making that play. So the big question is, will that continue? Because they need him for that overall passing game to work.
Yeah, you could see it weighing on his mind. He looked pretty dejected over there on the sidelines, especially after that drop that led to the interception. But a tale of two halves for Marvin Harrison. All right, they get the Tennessee Titans here this week. Cam Ward says they're playing like ass. Those are his words, not mine. One thing I know is Jonathan Gannon, he tends to have a good game plan scheme intact against these rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah, and so, Nick Rallis is the defensive coordinator. Gannon, obviously Gannon's involved. He knows what's going on, but he has a lot of confidence in Rallis. They've had issues this, so far this season. The defense is better than it was, but they're, they have it, personnel issues at corner, although they did have Will Johnson back at practice on Monday, who had missed the previous 2 games. So they're better on defense than they've been. But as what happens with a lot of defenses, the one thing that they're not able to do consistently is take the ball away, and then they give up explosive plays. And that happened in that Seattle game. They did an excellent job, against Kenneth Walker III in the running game. But then in one of the touchdown drives, three straight plays, Walker had explosive plays, and it led to a touchdown. And so, that happens around the NFL. Obviously, you're not going to eliminate all explosive plays, but the numbers that they've been giving up have really affected the games that they've played. And, it happened against the 49ers the week before, when they were doing a real good job in the passing game, weren't giving up explosives, weren't even doing that in the running game. They kind of held down Christian McCaffrey. But then in the final drive, McCaffrey just took a quick screen to the left, and all of a sudden, boom, he was down the field for 20 yards, and that got them into pretty easy field goal range for the winning field goal. And Nick Rallis said afterwards, he said, the play they called did not fit the defense we were in. And a lot of times coaches won't reveal that, but we all know that that's what happens a lot of times. And it also points to me to all the, of course, you never hear, it's always interesting to me, you never hear fans saying, well, the defensive coordinator didn't call a good game, right? You never hear that comment from the outside on defense. You always hear it on offense. If the offense is struggling, it's the offensive coordinator, right? It's the play calling. It's all those things. Well, here's Rallis admitting that they didn't have the right call for the defense. Is that a bad play call? No. Teams call things, offensively and defense, believing what the other team is going to do. And then a lot of times there's adjustments but you don't have a lot of time to make those adjustments. And sometimes one player might not hear the adjustment or get it, and all of a sudden maybe that player isn't where he's supposed to be, and it leads to an explosive play. Gannon also talked this week, Rick, and I'm sure this is a lot of teams. He said, we've had problems with when adjustments are made, that players that we felt, players came in unblocked that we thought were accounted for in either the play call or the switch that was made. And that's the thing that, hey, let's be honest, no one knows. Fans don't know. We in the media don't know when a play was changed or it was adjusted, or which player didn't do the right assignment, which led to a bad play. Those are the things that affect games more than which play is called, because after that, it's up to the players to execute it. But a lot of times it's the other team. The other team has a say in it. But we all know that fans and people look at teams in a vacuum of the team they're rooting for or they're covering. You very rarely hear Have you ever heard anyone ever say after their team won, say, well, gosh, we were lucky to win because the other team's play calling wasn't very good, right? You never hear that about the other team. It's always, oh, well, we did what we were supposed to do, right? But when it's the flip side, when it's your own team, you have to find someone to blame, and it usually is the play caller. But there's so much more nuance to it than that I think most of the noise that's out there in social media, whatever it is, has no clue, or does have a clue, but doesn't even care because they want to be able to blame somebody and fire a coach.
Yeah. Well, Gannon did face a lot of criticism, even though he was doing a good job in Philadelphia. They were really on him here. And
yeah, I know.
He did talk a lot about explosives, though. That he's fixated on explosive plays and limiting them. And obviously the offense is going to be needing them a little bit more. We were going to do some Hall of Fame debate. We already went overtime. Maybe we'll save it for next week and give us a little bit more runway to really get into it, because I think we're going to need some more time on that. But while I have you here, tomorrow is a wild NFC West matchup. We got San Francisco visiting the LA Rams, and Brock Purdy now with his toe may not be able to go. It might be Mac Jones. It might be Adrian Martinez, but obviously the Cardinals are going to be watching this one on Thursday night. Give us a little quick take on how you see this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's somewhat a toss-up, although the Purdy thing, I think, speaks to the issues that there are in the NFL when you have these Thursday games. And Kyle Shanahan alluded to yesterday, the short week and the quick turnaround makes it very difficult for him to be able to come back, get the treatment he needs and have an extra few days before game time. I mean, heck, it affected the Cardinals last week in their passing game because Zay Jones suffered a concussion against the 49ers, and there was no way he was going to clear the protocol in time to play a Thursday game. If they had played on Sunday, he probably would have been able to play. Now, how much difference it makes, who knows? But it definitely affects player availability when you have these Thursday games, obviously after a team has played on Sunday. And that although I'll say this, the 49ers have won games with Mac Jones. And so it's not like you're in a bad spot because of that. You'd prefer to have your main starter, but I think they'll probably be fine with Mac Jones. And so I think this game's kind of a toss-up. Like you said, it's a big divisional matchup with three teams now in the NFC West at 3-1, and the Cardinals at 2-2. And so I'd probably favor the Rams somewhat in this game. Obviously, the 49ers also lost Nick Bosa from the game last week.
Yeah.
And the Rams are a pretty healthy team, which is, even unusual this early in the season. So I would probably favor them. And Puka Nacua is, once again, I mean, gosh, the guy just rolls off 100-yard games like it was easy. I mean, it's just, it's just pretty phenomenal what he's able to do. But it should be a heck of a battle on Thursday Night Football.
Puka Nacua on pace for 1,964 yards. So he's chasing 2,000. And, the way I understood it was if because Mac Jones is also banged up. And the way I understand it is Jones would have started on Sunday if he was healthy enough to go. And I think they had to elevate Adrian Martinez from the practice squad. But something we'll have to just keep tabs on here in the next 24 hours, as the 49ers for the second year in a row have been bitten by the injury bug. It's been unbelievable.
Well, real quick point, because I don't know if you've seen this, because I believe you were on the air when this announcement came through. Maybe it was a little earlier, but Dylan Gabriel has the start for the Browns in London this week against.
Oh, is it the London game? I knew Gabriel was getting the start. I always lose track of these international games, so it's going to be a London affair. Okay.
Yes, and the Vikings playing 2 games in a row overseas, in Dublin last week, of course, and then they stay overseas and switch over to to London to play this game. And hey, they're going with Dylan Gabriel. So could Shedeur Sanders be that far away? I mean, I think it would be surprising if he didn't get some games this season, but they're going with Gabriel on the start, taking the long trip across the pond. So it'll be interesting to see how that one goes early on Sunday morning.
Yeah, it'll get the cakes and eggs ready out there in the desert. I mean, it's early here, 9 a.m. kickoff, so 6 a.m. out there. So Dylan Gabriel making his start in London, taking over for Joe Flacco, who's thrown 6 interceptions through the first month of the season. And yeah, I think it's only a matter of time before Shedeur Sanders gets a look-see. At some point, you want to know what you have in-house. Obviously, Joe Flacco is not going to be here beyond this year, I wouldn't imagine. So the mistake by the lake continues for the Cleveland Browns. What do you got coming up over at Cards Wire, Howard, before we let you go?
Well, just staying on it each day, and had a story the other day on Marvin Harrison and, the big, I wouldn't say the big game, but a nice fourth quarter. And, will that continue? And, just staying on it with them. And, you always hear everybody talk about trap games. And so when you're playing a team that hasn't won in the Titans, and you hear all the accolades from coaches and players. Oh boy, all you have to do is put on the tape, and you see that this team isn't as bad as it looks, and things like that. But and obviously, even teams with bad records have a certain amount of good players, but anyone's capable of those explosive plays, and that's what the Cardinals' challenge is going to be, because I know amongst the fan base there's a certain amount of angst. I mean, I don't know that anyone expects them to lose, but in the back of their mind, they're going, oh, my goodness, if they lose this game, then everyone will be saying the season's lost. It's over. It's done. Don't even play the remaining games of the season. So we'll see how that one plays out.
Yeah, I see a matchup of two offensively challenged teams in this one. So we'll see. Maybe it'll be a defensive battle, but always appreciate the time. We'll do it again next week. We'll get in the wide receiver Hall of Fame debate that we wanted to do, but I want to make sure we have the appropriate time to do that, because there's a lot to get to in those conversations. So always appreciate the time, H-Bomb.
My pleasure, Rick. Take care.
All right, there he is, and there he goes. Howard Balzer joining us each and every Wednesday, celebrating 50 years of covering the NFL and NFL draft, and we just love the insight. And I'm glad we spent a little bit of time talking about special teams, because it is 1/3 of the game. And the way, this would be considered the golden era of kickers. I mean, we have never seen this many quality, consistent, long-range kickers in the history of the National Football League. And it's pretty incredible. And I don't know about the K-ball. I think it should just be an even playing field. You just use the game ball, and the more savvy veteran guys who may know, all these Australian kickers coming into the league. I don't know if they have anything to do with this, but I don't know. It seems kind of funny that these guys, they just have these balls all season long that they keep and they rub up. And I mean, who's checking the PSI on these things? I don't see anybody checking the PSI before the kick. It seems a little bit off to me, because they made such a big deal about Tom Brady's balls. What about these kickers' balls? Right? Good stuff there from Howard Balzer. I always appreciate the time out of him. And tomorrow we have Ben Devine making his all-access football debut, Chicago Bears insider, NFL Draft Nick. On Friday, it'll be a Football Friday affair. Jason B. Hirschborn, formerly of NFL.com, now publishing The Leap over at Substack. He'll give us a Packers update, Bears and Packers on a bye this week. And, man, we just got to looking at the Friday night light schedule on college football. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 matchups on the Friday night lights, and we previewed that UVA Virginia. We told you about the upset alert with the Cavaliers beating the Seminoles last Friday. And then tomorrow, we just gave you a preview of the 49ers at Rams, both teams 3-1 on Thursday Night Football. We've also got a Conference USA matchup in Sam Houston State at New Mexico State. So we'll give you some names that you need to know for the upcoming 2026 NFL Draft. Of course, Saturday is the college football pregame show with Russell Landy, and this Sunday NFL Pick'em. We're doing pretty good there with our predictions, 37-25 against the spread through the first 4 weeks of the NFL season. If you can find a better handicapper out there, I'd like to know who it is, because we're riding high on the All Access Football Show through the first month. But as Howard alluded to, it's early in the season. It blinks in the beat of an eye, and we'll be grateful if we can stay above, keep our head above that 500 watermark. But we're 12 games above 500 against the spread, 37-25. We'll get our official prediction on the books for tomorrow's show for our 32nd episode of the All Access Football Daily Show. This was the 31st edition, and we may have another special guest here. We got one more special guest to bring you before we wrap up today's show. We went overtime today, and Howard is so generous to give us his time to go overtime. We're wrapping up the show. Here we go. We got the special guest. Oceana did not make it to school today, so she's home hanging out, and she's going to deliver a quick message for the people at home. What do you want to tell everybody?
Teddy is saying hi.
You hanging out with Teddy this morning?
Yeah.
What are we watching on the show? You watching the All Access football show?
Never.
You're watching Italian Brain Rot.
You do.
All right. Well, we're gonna say goodbye and wrap up.
I'm not an iPad kid.
You're not an iPad kid?
No.
Oh no? Okay, good. Well, that about does it for another edition here on the All Access
I'm not
Football
an
Daily.
iPad kid because my batteries.
Because
Yeah.
I got to charge up the iPad. I got daddy obligations over here at the All Access Football headquarters studio. We are broadcasting live from the Jersey Shore around the universe. We thank you all for tuning in today, and we'll be back at it again on October 2nd for another edition of the All Access Football Show.
Teddy.
Hey, RIC and a place to be. Ric Serritella checking in from the legendary Jersey Shore for the world famous All Access Football, and you're tuned in to the All Access Football Daily Show, our newest venture here at the world famous All Access Football, read by all 32 NFL teams and 50,000 subscribers from around the world. And I've been blessed and fortunate enough to work in this great game of football for the past 2 decades. It's our 24th season of providing you independent analysis when it comes to the NFL draft and everything pigskin, whether it's the NFL, college football, NFL draft, CFL, UFL. We'll be with you each step of the way, especially for draft season when we really get into high mode. Of course, it's all brought to you by the 2026 NFL Draft Bible, published in April, featuring over 500 in-depth scouting reports with our boots-on-the-ground analysis. We'll be on location at the All-Star Games, the NFL Scouting Combine, the Pro Day circuit, counting you down to that 2026 NFL Draft in Pittsburgh. And be sure you check us out over at allaccessfootball.com. We've got a great promo discount for you listeners at home. If you enter our promo code RIC VIP, you'll get a 30% discount off of all of our premium content. You'll unlock the magic. Get our NFL Draft Insider Reports, Scouting Notebook, of course, the World Football All Access Football Report published on Wednesday. It's your new home for real football talk. So follow along, give us a shout. We hope you're enjoying the show. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or X, please give it a like, a share, a subscribe, and we'll be with you each and every day here, 7 days a week, live, 10 a.m. Eastern, no days off, rain, sleet, hail, snow. The show must go on. For Ric Serritella and the All Access Football Daily Show, keep it locked, everybody.